Hey guys, welcome to Vlogging in My Bathrobe. It is January 15th and I'm doing How You Met Your Husband. It's a tag game and I got it from Stacysunnysidemakeup. So hopefully the glare in my glasses isn't bothering you guys too much. I'll try to put them on top of my head. I don't know what has happened with my eyesight lately, but my glasses still seem to correct my vision perfectly. I put my contact lenses in and I'm like halfway between my normal eyesight and good eyesight. I'm squinting. Looks like it's a trip to the eye doctor, but I don't know why my contacts aren't working anymore. I've tried two different pairs, so I know it's not just one pair is really dirty. I reuse the heck out of these cups, so I don't know if I've mentioned, but I have kicked a 15, 20-year addiction to soda pop. The big bad bronchitis kind of got me over the caffeine withdrawal symptoms, and I was drinking lemonade every day, and I'm used to constantly having a cup with me. I drink all day long. It used to be Diet Dr. Pepper, and I was putting away at least a 2 liter a day. But I went to lemonade and pink lemonade, and it started giving me really bad heartburn. So now I'm doing the Mio, and I happen to pick up a Mio Energy by mistake. And I just want to let you know this stuff is pretty good. It doesn't give me any of the after effects of, say, a Red Bull or any of the other energy drinks. And honestly, it tastes kind of like Kool-Aid, but seems to make me a little bit more thirsty, so I'm drinking more and more and more. And since it is energy, I've noticed I'm talking a little bit faster, and hopefully that won't be a distraction or an irritation while you're watching this video. I guess I should get started, right? It's hard for me to tell this story, but it's a happy story, and we'll keep it happy. We'll keep it upbeat. A lot of you might not realize if you're watching my channel for the first time, but March, 2 months from now, will be the second-year anniversary of my husband passing away. February 14th would have been our 18th wedding anniversary. We were together for 16 years. And before we start the video, I just want to tell you guys, Roger and I had 2 vacations, just he and I, in all those years. Our first vacation, we took a Caribbean cruise before we started having kids, before we started fostering. And up until not even a year before he passed away, we took all of our vacations with our children. They were all centered around the kids. They were all kid-based places, Disney World, Disneyland, Universal Studios, even going to the beach. We made it all about the kids. And we had a hard part in our marriage, a really big bump in the road. Maybe in year 14, year 15. And we struggled to make it through that hard patch. And after that, I told him, we're going to take time for ourselves. We're so trained, at least during the generation Roger and I were in, raising kids, that the kids come first. The kids come first. Don't have kids if you're not going to put them before yourself. And I'm here to tell you that's a quick way to really mess yourself up. You can't be there for your kids if you're not there for each other. If you don't have that basis of love and that relationship with your spouse, you're not good for yourself. You're not good for your kids. You're not good for anybody. So take that time. But we did. That last year, we took a tour of Bourbon Trail. We went to Tennessee. We went to Lynchburg and saw Jack Daniels. We did the Maker's Mark Distillery, Jim Beam Distillery. It was a lot of fun. We camped out at Mammoth Caves, and yeah. But we're here to talk about our first date. And I was 23. Roger was 32, and I had been through 2 marriages. He had been married before. He had only had 2 semi-serious relationships before we met. And I had gotten out of those marriages. The second marriage, we should have gotten annulled. It was so quick. It was a mistake. I knew it was a mistake from the get-go. But we said we were going to keep this happy, so we're not going to focus on that. And after those divorces, I had a clearer head. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want. I sat down with my sister and with a close friend and made a list of those things. You know, when you're wearing those rose-colored glasses that do a first love, you can excuse a lot of things. You can say, you know, when they do something, he didn't really mean it. He was just having a bad day, and you excuse a lot of things that you really shouldn't excuse. And that's what I was thinking when I made this list. So I put down on the list all the things that I would no longer tolerate. I put on the list 3 columns, the things that I would really like to have, but they were just kind of cutesy things. Like I really wanted him to be into sci-fi. Facial hair would have been great. Driving a pickup truck. And then the list of things that he really needed to have, like a job. So I was armed with this list, and I was decided to not enter into another relationship until I found someone that was perfect for me. I thought it would be a long, long search, but it wasn't. I started using this service called Telecompanions. Now, Telecompanions was around before computer dating. Most of us didn't even have a PC in our homes back in the early 90s. As a matter of fact, I didn't get my first email address until after Roger and I were married. And I know a lot of you guys are on the Sherlock elementary bandwagon right now, following along Sherlock Holmes. He's as big as He's almost as big as Doctor Who. Let me watch myself here. But this was, you know, the early 90s, and that's how I became Sherlock. Sherlock was a Sherlock fan way before it was cool. I'd sat down with my husband, and he was helping me make my email. And even back then, it was hard to get the first thing you wanted. Nobody was using the combination really of first initial, last name yet. Everybody had really cool email addresses. And I was getting upset because I hadn't found one that the computer would accept, that AOL would accept yet. And I looked up at him and I'm like, it's just sheer luck that you get what you want. You know, it's hard to get what you know, the email address you want. And it kind of dawned on both of us right about then, because he knew how much I loved Sherlock Holmes. I was like, that's it, Sherlock. And I don't remember why I couldn't have the K. I don't know if it wouldn't accept it or for what reason, but yeah, I became Sherlock way back then. But I don't know why I'm having such a hard time telling you guys this story. So I was using Telecompanions, the telephone dating service, and I came home from work. It was a late night that night, and listened to my messages, and you know, delete this guy. I remember him. He's full of baloney. Delete this guy. I know what he's looking for. And then there was Roger's voice, and yeah, it was like that feeling, even when I first heard his voice. And he left a message. Telecompanions had a service where if you didn't want to give a strange man, your telephone number, you could use their option called Connect Live. And you could use their computer system. It would route your telephone call to the other person, and all the person had to do was call in and turn their phone on. And Roger said that's what he would do. Every night he would get home from work that week, he would turn his Connect Live on at 6 o'clock, and if I was interested, you know, maybe I'd give him a ring. And I did. And we were on the phone till 4 a.m. It was awesome. After we talked for about an hour, I actually gave him my telephone number. Most guys would kind of hustle you and try to get you to give them your phone number really quickly because they were charged by the minute. It was free for women, and well, that's how the company made their money. Roger wasn't like that. But I ended up giving him my telephone number, and around midnight, I guess, I told him about my list. You know, I spoke to him long enough that he wouldn't think I was completely crazy having this list, right? And I'm like, you know, it's like you're peeking over my shoulder. You're hitting everything. Down to him being a science fiction nerd to, he was into sci-fi more than I was. He got me into some great authors. He got me reading Anne McCaffrey. He got me reading Alan Dean Foster. Yeah, it was he was hitting everything on the list, except for one thing. And that one thing was he still lived at home with mom and dad. Yeah, at 32. But, I mean, the story he gave me kind of evened it out. He, his sister, and his parents had bought 15 acres of land, and they all got out there, hammer in hand, nail, built the house themselves. And the plan was, in a couple of years, to build his sister's house on her 5 acres. and then in a few years, they would build Roger's house on his 5 acres. Of course, after we got married, he no longer wanted to live next door to mom and dad, but that's a story for another day. So we got through with this phone conversation, and it turned out that his uncle had recently passed away, and he was planning a trip out to Columbus, which he lived an hour and a half east of me. Columbus is about an hour west of me, so he passed right by my exit. Drove out there, spent several days in Columbus helping his aunt pack up his late uncle's belongings. Drove his parents back to Covington, came back to my town, and showed up at work. Now, I didn't know at the time that Roger had recently lost a great deal of weight. And he came walking in the door with his gold pants on. And you ladies know what I'm talking about. We all have those gold pants when we're on a diet. They're usually a size, maybe 2 sizes too small, and you work really hard to get into them. Well, Roger could get into his gold pants. Barely. I didn't care. He walked in the door, and I caught my breath caught in the back of my throat.
Just a few pictures of Roger and I over the years.
Now you have to remember, we didn't have computers. I didn't have a photograph of him. He didn't have a photograph of me. We didn't have cell phones. There were cell phones back then, but not everybody had them. He had a beeper, and I remember his beeper was this big. His beeper was bigger than his wallet. That's how huge it was. But I'm sorry, my mind just went somewhere with that. I apologize. So without really knowing what the other person looked like, I knew it was him when he walked in the door. And I had a couple friends there at work with me. I worked at a dry cleaner laundromat. And I told the girls, I said, stay here with me. These were 2 beautiful blonde young ladies, about a year younger than me. And I'm like, if he pays more attention to you than he pays to me, then I'll know to cut my line and fish somewhere else, right? But he walked in the door, and I couldn't take my eyes off him. He couldn't take his eyes off me. He kept trying to leave to go get a hotel room because he had driven so much that day and worked so hard. But I wouldn't let him go. I kept telling him, we've got so many hotels around here, it shouldn't be any problem finding you a room. Little did I know there was a big NASCAR race, and I live just south of the Atlanta Motor Speedway, so the hotels were jam-packed. And when I got off work at 11 o'clock, we had to end up going into another county to find him a hotel room. My kids don't watch my videos, not that they really want to hear this, so I guess I can tell you, once we found his hotel room, I never left. Yeah, I ended up spending the night with him the first night, and that first date ended up stretching into 3 days. Now, here's another funny story about our first date. The next day, I took him around all my favorite places, restaurants that I like to go, places I like to hang out. And that evening we ended up, I can't remember if it was the evening of the second day or of the third day, but we ended up going to my best friend's house. He had to go through that final test, of course, to meet my best friend. And we walked in the door and she was cracking up laughing. Apparently, now that I'm a 41-year-old woman, I can see his mother's side of this a lot better. He was actually in his dad's vehicle. So he had not called to check in. Living at home, being in his dad's vehicle, she started to worry about him. So she asked his sister if she might know where he was at. Lid's popping off my cup. And his sister said, well, he's been mentioning a woman called Megan. I don't really know anything else about her. And they went and searched his bedroom, his sister and his mother, found his address book, found my name, my telephone number, or since I was still living at home with mom, but remember I was 10 years younger. They called my mother, and my mother explained that while I did kind of live there and I got my mail there, I would spend time with this friend and with that friend. And, as long as I got up and went to work, I thought I was doing pretty good. So she let them know that I may not be there for a few days and gave them Paula's telephone number. So Paula's sitting there laughing and says, your mommy called looking for you. Now my mother-in-law's gone now as well. She passed away last July, and she hated it when I told that story. She didn't see anything funny about it, but we teased him for years that his mommy had to check up on him during our date. So yeah, that was how we met. That was our first date, and we started talking in October, met in November, and we were married by February. So it was a whirlwind rush relationship. We had several awesome years. We had a couple small bad patches, like every couple does. But there towards the end, of course, we didn't know it was the end then. We reconnected in such a wonderful way. And like I said, that trip to Kentucky was the best thing that we did for our relationship in the majority of our marriage. And you guys still have a chance to go do that. So I want you to click like, leave a comment maybe, but when you turn off YouTube, go give your husbands a hug. When they ask what's going on, just tell them you're so glad to still have them. And that was vlogging in my bathrobe. Thank you guys for sticking with me this far, if you did. And thanks to Stacysunnysidemakeup for giving me this cool tag. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Well, thank you for sticking around to the end. I wanted to share these pictures with you as well. It shows Roger and our son Lucas taking a dip in the river up in Tennessee on a hot summer day. It's a little spot they call the Y. Lucas was afraid of getting his hair wet, so Roger was showing him how to dive right in.